Hey folks, today we have a special guest, one of my very close friends, and I used to work with him in a previous company, GK. He also has his own separate channel. He recently crossed 100,000 subscribers, so congratulations to him, a big
Thank
milestone,
you.
definitely well deserved. So I'm going to ask him some of the questions that you folks should find helpful. And then, and he will have some tips and tricks on how to take your cloud career to the next level. But before we jump into the questions, GK, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Raj. Thanks for having me on your channel. It's amazing always. This is our second conversation, and it's nice to talk to you as always. And to introduce myself, my name is Krishna Gadiraju, and AKA GK is my nickname. Like Raj said, I also have my own YouTube channel, Cloud Advocate. So I started my IT career in 2008. So I have close to 13 years of experience, and I and Raj worked together at Verizon, and we worked in a same team, solving, or rather helping our customers or clients to go to AWS cloud at that point of time. And then later on, I started working on GCP. So I started as a multi-cloud architect, and then eventually now I'm working more on the security part of the platform security or cloud security. That's about me. Thank you, Raj.
Yes, GK is wearing a Google Cloud hat. GK, so yeah, it looks good on him. So,
Thank you.
so on that note, GK, what cloud should people learn? AWS, GCP, or Azure?
Yeah, this is the most commonly asked question, as you know, and people always have this dilemma. So I think you have addressed this as well. Even I did. Mostly, we would suggest to pick the top three: AWS, Azure, or GCP. But as always, AWS is still top, so you won't go wrong picking AWS, because even when people interview for AWS or GCP, they're fine if you just have AWS experience, because these skills are interchangeable. And so that way, my suggestion is that you don't ponder more about this. Just stick to one cloud, either it is AWS or GCP or Azure. Personally, right now, I mean, I don't have any favorites as such, Raj. Though I'm wearing a GCP hat right now, I'm focusing more on Azure. So you can go with Azure as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, I think whichever cloud your company is adopting within these three, just learn that and get going, right? Don't do
Exactly.
analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So currently you lead a security team, GK, right, on the cloud.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, either in interview or real world projects, what are some of the security topics that people should know?
Yeah. So my security concepts are more around cloud, or securing the cloud workloads. So whenever I interview for people on the cloud security or the container security or PaaS security, my focus would be more on how to, like for example, how would you secure the workload in cloud? For instance, how would you use IAM to secure those workloads? Or how would you encrypt at rest? Or how would you use encryption at transit? What is TLS, different versions? So those are some of the basic concepts. But also now, as with DevSecOps, you have to know a little bit of tools, that are part of this cloud ecosystem as well when you're trying to migrate the code or deploy the code in the cloud. How securely you're deploying. At the end of the day, the code is the one that might be vulnerable, irrespective of where that code is going to reside. Either it can be in data center or in cloud. So yeah, mostly around these DevSecOps concepts and the tools that a person might have used in past in the DevSecOps, and IAM, especially on specific cloud. Like if a person has GCP experience also, I have no issues asking GCP or Azure or even AWS. And most importantly, the ideology and thinking of how that person has the security mindset. So see, these are some of the high level stuff, Raj, high level topics.
Okay.
But from there, I would go into the deeper, concepts of security based on the answers.
Okay. So one of the unique experience GK has, he worked both in startups as well as enterprises.
Yeah.
So how does your job as a cloud engineer or architect differ from enterprises versus startup, GK?
Yeah, so especially as far as cloud is concerned, so I have little experience working in the startups for some time, because at the time the cloud was new. So my experience with the startup is that you have more exposure to the services. You have open, console access most of the time. So you can play around with the services, like to an extent, even in the production environments. But as you know, you and I worked on the enterprise.
Right.
It's tough. The whole developer experience is totally different on cloud,
Right.
especially enterprises who have which are from financial or fintech, or like even our company had some of those restrictions. So people who want to apply for enterprises, they have to be prepared for that. It's not like whatever they're gonna learn on their computer, accessing the console and practicing around those things will not be applicable in the enterprise. They might have their own tool chain to deploy into the cloud. Whereas in startups, you might have similar experience working in cloud. I'm sure Raj, you can also relate to this better because you work with a lot of enterprises and as well as startup companies. I don't know, especially on the AWS side.
Yeah.
So feel free to pitch in on this.
Yeah, I work with mostly enterprises and some
Okay.
startups. So definitely what you said is true. One example is startups will adopt any service to move faster, right? But in enterprises, the service needs to go through a lot of scrutiny before it can be approved, right? So, and then also, but then startups are more focused on cost optimization because they are working on investor money, right? So the developers and architects need to be more cognizant of how to make things more efficient. Whereas enterprises, they also focus on cost optimization, but they have some wiggle room to do proof of concepts without getting worried that, oh my God, if this project doesn't work out, the company is gonna go down the drain, right?
Right.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that I would say. But yeah, but that's great. Thank you, GK. So this question we both get a lot, right? Everyone wants to switch their career to the cloud, especially folks who are the late 30s, early 40s, right?
Right.
What are some tips that you can give to switch careers for both freshers and for people who are middle-aged?
Thank you for asking this question, Raj. It is the toughest question to answer because and also it's the most common question.
Right.
Yeah. So if you talk about the freshers to start with, it applies like freshers, meaning here people who are coming out of the college who do not have any experience. So the advantage they have when compared to the people who are in 30s and 40s is that now these days, a lot of companies, when they go to the college, so if you have learned some cloud by yourself by that time, like let's say 4 years, third year, you started learning. And I see a lot of good trends now because, a lot of people reach out to me and you as well. And we see that at third year itself, they'll ask us how to work on AWS or how to, learn Google Cloud.
Right.
And that's a good trend because for me, in fourth year as well, I don't know anything about the new technologies. So people are eager to learn new technologies such as cloud. So now as they learn in the third year and by the time they go to the fourth year, so they should be ready during the interview process. Like a lot of service-based companies, I'm sure whenever they go to the universities or colleges, if they see a student who has experience or rather who knows how to use cloud or the DevOps concepts, so it will be easy for them to hire. So they should stick to that, learn as early as possible, and everything is pretty much free these days. They have courses like yours, which are in India, it's very cheap, like 700 rupees, I guess. Even in US, it is like $10 or $15.
Yeah.
Most of the times, you always give them discounts. So, so it's easier, and I think the education itself is going in a right direction. Like they don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars in universities to learn cloud. So they have to do that. I believe they have to start early, and then whenever they are going out of the college, they can get into a company. So that's one way. And I mean, that's for the freshers. For the people who are in 30s and 40s, the another advantage that they have is that they already have some experience, working in some technology like Java or QA or any technology in IT field. So they have to learn like a fresher, but they have other skills that they can adapt to cloud is much faster than fresher because they know how to work on Linux. They have some interchangeable skills to learn cloud. Yeah, so both have their own pros and cons.
Yeah.
And 30s people who are in 30s like you have learned cloud.
I'm beyond 30s, GK.
Yeah. You look so young, Raj, so I forgot your age. So if you are able to do it from mainframes, and mainframes is like, my grandfather's
Ancient.
technology, right? So,
Yeah.
so people can learn from QA or from Linux easily. People ask me a lot of questions on this.
Yeah.
The only answer to them is just pick a cloud,
Mm-hmm.
pick a course, and start from day one. You won't
Right.
go wrong. At max, you are spending 2 months of time. So anyways, you are going to spend 2 months of time working in the same company.
Right.
So yeah, just start, and start working on this, and you can reach out to me or Raj whenever we have some time. We can give you some advice,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll tell you what are some of the scenarios that happen in the companies, and you can also look at our videos that can give you
Mm-hmm.
enough information about what happens exactly in companies.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I would like to add is sometimes people downplay the communication part, right? So
Yeah,
don't think like that. People say communication is a soft skill. It's not right.
yeah,
Communication is a skill, period, right? It's neither
yeah.
soft nor hard, right? It's a very required
True.
skill. So if you are late 30s or 40s like me, then chances are you have a better communication. So utilize that. So
Yeah,
when you are learning, practice those answers, right? Because you are learning for interviews. You can look up interview questions. GK made a lot of videos on it. I made a lot of videos on it. Practice in your own ways, right? And that kind of helps you, makes you a little bit comfortable. And there are so many things like GK is saying out there, like quick starts. You can easily run something, play it out, right? So
yeah.
do all that stuff. But yeah, I agree with you, GK, because this day and age, with the free flowing, cheap information, should be easy to get started and get going.
And that's the beauty of IT, right, Raj?
Yeah,
Like in other areas, you don't have this much of scope to learn multiple stuff. But here
right.
you can learn machine learning if you want. And we have seen a lot of people in Verizon as well,
Mm-hmm.
switching to data engineering from nowhere,
Yep.
and switching to cloud from nowhere.
Yeah.
And mostly companies will ask, I'm sure they'll ask about the experience, but they'll
Yeah.
ask only for first two questions. And then
Yeah.
eventually they'll go into the technical part. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry about like, without experience in cloud, can I even crack the interview?
Correct.
So I guess first you have to try, and then eventually you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think, yeah, no, I agree. And I think we are fortunate because I have a very
Yeah,
close friend who is a dentist, right? And
right,
he's doing the same thing for like 30 years, right? So there is, once you
right.
learn, that's it. Even if like you want to try something new, you cannot, right?
Yeah,
But in our field, as long as you like to learn new
yeah,
things, you can always learn new things, right? Like I
right,
was in mainframe, GK started his career as QA, right? And
right,
then he learned new things, I learned new things. Then at that point, we thought, okay, EC2, CloudFormation, Jenkins is amazing. And then the world moved on. Then we learned other things, right? GK went
right,
deeper in security. I went deeper in Kubernetes, serverless. GK is also doing a lot of Kubernetes. So that's the fun of it. You keep learning, and then
yeah,
it's the mentality, because even if you learn everything that is now today and you go into job and you think, okay, this is it, I don't have to learn anything for next 10 years. That's not
that's
true, right?
true.
As long
Yeah,
as you have the mentality of being learning and being curious, you should be fine.
yep,
um,
absolutely.
okay, so the next question, this is also, GK is in a lot of unique places. That's why I like to have this chat with GK. GK currently is a manager, but before he was an architect. Before that, he was a hands-on engineer. So between manager and architect, what are some pros and cons, GK?
Yeah, so just to go back to the way managers used to be before when we started our IT, right, Raj? So they used to be more like a project managers, like PM stuff.
Mhm,
They get the work, they give it to the resources and
mhm,
or their people who are reporting to them, and then they get it delivered. So
mhm,
there was no such technical advice that they used to give. But I think if you see now the managers even in AWS or
mhm.
even Google, they're highly technical. I mean, on any day they can even write the code if
Yep.
required.
Mhm,
So I think it is shifting to a technical manager more than a project manager or a PM based off roles that used to be before. So that way, it was always a dilemma for me whether to be a manager or whether to be an architect.
mhm.
And I'm sure architect will have more jobs, I think, than a manager has. But it's like a two different paths. Like you can go as a manager, senior manager, director, above in this path, and then in architect you can become a CTO if you want to.
Mhm.
But I think my feeling on this is like each one has its pros and cons. It depends on individual, like how that individual would enjoy, because some people would like to be an individual contributor and they want to go to the highest level possible in that, and they enjoy that, and some people would like to work with people and have fun with people and empower them. So I wanted to do both, honestly, and that's why I went into the management position. And previously, I went into the management position. I came back to the architect, and again I went into the management position. But it's good. I mean, now since this is a technical role, you can help people to go in the right direction technically, and you can empower them technically as well. And you can also give some suggestions. So yeah, so pros and cons. Manager, obviously, Raj, you know that pros is that they are also well paid sometimes.
Yeah.
Now even architects are
People
well
have to do what you say, GK.
Yeah, mostly in India. Right. And then manager has its own title thing in India, but it's not not in US, as you know, right? So these are some of the pros. And cons is that very few positions in a company, because managers, if they are there, they'll be like a glue stick. The glue. They'll not leave the position. So unless that one person leaves, you cannot have another position. But in the case of architects, the pros are, obviously you can learn, you can implement a lot of technical stuff. You have to be hands-on. And cons is that in a manager, at least you can adapt faster, and you don't have to have the deep, knowledge technically, and you can still survive in the market. But architect, you have to keep learning. So that's a con for people, who want to relax a bit at some point of their career. But I'm not saying that I'm going to relax. I'm just saying like
no. Yeah. No, I totally get it. Like, yeah, you summed it up pretty nicely. I have never been a manager, right? I always was curious. I led teams, but yes, because I know for a manager, some of the things, like you said, it's a personal preference. I did not want to do that end-year salary performance discussion, handling a lot of people's emotion, right, which you are good at.
Handling a lot of politics sometimes.
Politics, yeah. But like you said, if I were in India, I would probably become a manager, because for those of you who don't know, for the people who are from US, in India, manager is a very respected title. Like if you are an individual contributor, it's difficult. Like if you are getting married,
doesn't matter if you say like you're at SA and AWS, they'll be like, "Are you a manager or not?"
Are you manager? Yeah. Like, I still remember. I'm sure things have changed now. Like India, when I was a young guy, a lot of arranged marriages, right? And if you're in IT, the bride's father will always ask, "Are you a manager yet?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't want to be a manager." But that's the perception. But yeah, I agree with you, and I'm sure someday.
It's more like a perception thing. You're right.
Yeah, but yeah, I am waiting to see, because I know one of your dream is to speak in a huge conference, right? And with this manager path, I'm sure you will be able to achieve it someday. Yeah. Okay, cool. That was good conversation. So we talked about manager versus architect. That manager can study a little bit, don't need to go super deep and start talking about learning new things. What are some of the new things you are studying right now in the cloud?
Yeah, so when we started on cloud, we mostly worked on AWS, right? And then I also worked on GCP, and when I was part of the governance team. So now I'm more curious on the Azure part, to be honest with you, because I'm seeing like it is picking up very fast in the market. I'm seeing a lot of job openings in India as well. So I want to see like how they are doing differently when compared to AWS, for instance, like how they are able to compete with AWS, and what are the areas that they are trying to compete with AWS. And what I found is that they are competing on Azure DevOps side mostly, and because they have created the whole niche around Azure DevOps, which is a good masterstroke when compared to AWS or GCP. Because GCP has its own AI ML stuff, and AWS is heavily on compute. And these people have created this whole DevOps, and they have created like dev.azure.com, a separate portal. And I think acquiring GitHub helped them a lot in that area. So I want to explore more in that space. And along with that, I also want to explore more on the security part. I think going forward, as you are seeing, there are a lot of attacks on cloud platforms, PaaS or SaaS. the scope of security is going to increase a lot. So these two are the things currently I'm more focusing on, Raj, and obviously along with that, our my YouTube channel. Not a new technology that I'm learning, but I'm trying to improve my channel by learning some new tools and how to edit videos much better. So these are some of the skills that I'm working mostly on.
Gotcha. So next time we expect you to wear a Azure hat instead of Google hat. You have been, went from AWS hat to GCP hat. So next is that. Okay.
When I have 3 hats, and then
3 hats.
people
Yeah, you should.
whatever they want.
Change in between.
Yeah.
That'll be good. No, you could have a hat which says GCP, a T-shirt which says AWS, and maybe a hoodie which says Azure. That would be good.
I think I did that video once. Actually, in one of my video, I wore a AWS T-shirt, and then I put on a GCP hat, and people were confused. I think the same video where I presented about AWS versus GCP versus Azure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give all the links and stuff in the description. On that note, this has been great, but I know people might have more questions. So also the viewers who are watching this, put your more questions on the comments. We can cover it. If there are a lot of questions, we can cover it in another video. But where can people find and reach you, GK?
So they can reach out to me in the LinkedIn, or my Instagram, or even my YouTube channel. So yeah, they can reach out to me anywhere, Raj.
Okay.
Mostly, I'm sorry. So in the Instagram, I tend to get a lot of comments, or rather a lot of questions. So I might be a little slow in responding, but I'll try to respond whenever I have some time.
Excellent. Yeah. GK is Instagram star.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. GK, thank you again. I always enjoy these chats, not only because this goes over the technical, because we used to see each other almost every day, right? And have lunch every day, play ping pong, and then hang out and stuff, right? But then GK went to India from US, and then we don't get to catch up that much.
More on that coming soon.
Yeah, because of the time difference, and GK has a family, I have my family, and it's difficult to catch up. So not only we get to answer some of the viewer questions, but we also get to catch up. All right, thank you, GK.
Thanks, Raj.
Thanks for coming, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.